The sky over Lagos turned a deep gray as thick clouds gathered, promising a heavy downpour. Adaobi, a young woman in her mid-20s, was just finishing her daily sales of bean cakes at her usual corner by the roadside. She moved quickly, packing up her tray and folding the stool she used, hoping to make it home before the rain began. As she hurried along the sidewalk, a sudden clap of thunder made her pause. That was when she heard a faint groan. It was so soft it could have been the wind. Except it came again, louder this time. Curious and concerned, Adaobi turned her head and looked toward the side of the road. There, just beside a gutter, was a man lying on the ground. His clothes were soaked, and there was a cut on his forehead. People walked past him without stopping. Some glanced at him briefly and then moved on, uninterested and unwilling to get involved. Adaobi felt a pull in her heart. Something told her to stop. She dropped her bag and rushed to the man's side. He was unconscious but breathing. He wore a once white shirt, now muddy and wet, and his shoes were half off. His wristwatch, though scratched, looked expensive clearly. This man wasn't a street beggar. "Sir, can you hear me?" she asked gently, touching his shoulder. There was no response. Adaobi looked around helplessly, hoping someone else would offer assistance, but no one did. Without wasting another moment, she flagged down a passing tricycle driver and begged him to help her take the man to the nearby clinic. The driver hesitated but eventually agreed. Together, they lifted the man into the vehicle, and Adaobi sat with him, supporting his head as the rain began to pour more heavily. When they arrived at the clinic, the nurses quickly took over. They asked for his name, his family, a phone number, anything that could help identify him. But he had nothing on him. No wallet, no ID, no phone. "We'll stabilize him first," one nurse said. "Then we'll figure out who he is." Adaobi sat in the waiting area, dripping wet, unsure of why she felt so attached to this stranger. She could have walked away, just like everyone else. But something deep inside her had told her to stop and help. What she didn't know then was that the man lying unconscious in that hospital bed would soon change the course of her entire life. Adaobi returned to the clinic early the next morning. She hadn't slept well, her mind constantly replaying the events of the previous day. Something about the stranger had unsettled her, not in a threatening way, but in a deeply emotional one she couldn't explain. When she entered the clinic, the nurse on duty recognized her immediately. "You came back?" the nurse asked with a hint of surprise. "Yes," Adaobi replied. "How is he?" "The man from yesterday. He's stable now. He woke up briefly during the night, but he was confused. He doesn't remember anything. No name, no contacts, nothing." Adaobi's eyes widened. "Amnesia?" The nurse nodded. "It seems like it. He hit his head pretty hard. The doctor says it might be temporary." Curiosity tugged at her. She asked if she could see him, and after a moment of hesitation, the nurse allowed it. Adaobi walked slowly into the small private ward. The man was awake now, sitting up with a bandage around his head. His eyes were sharp but confused, like someone trying to piece together a broken puzzle. When he saw her, he blinked, studying her face. "You're the girl from the rain," he said softly. Adaobi gave a small smile. "Yes. You collapsed by the road. I brought you here." He lowered his eyes. "Thank you. I don't know who I am. I don't remember anything." "That's okay," she said gently. "You're safe now." There was a long pause. Then he asked, "Do you have any idea who I might be?" Adaobi shook her head. "No, you didn't have anything on you. But your watch looked expensive. Maybe you're someone important." He gave a faint chuckle, but it didn't reach his eyes. "I don't feel important." Over the next few days, Adaobi visited him daily. She brought him food when she could and helped the nurses talk to him when he seemed too overwhelmed. A strange friendship started to form between them, a bond born out of compassion and mystery. The clinic staff began calling him Mr. Rain for lack of a better name. Adaobi simply called him stranger. But what no one could have guessed was that behind the bandages, the memory loss, and the quiet demeanor was a man who owned one of the biggest companies in Lagos. And soon, that forgotten identity would come crashing back, with consequences neither of them could predict. Mr. Rain, still without a name or memory, was discharged from the clinic after a week. He had nowhere to go, and although the clinic suggested a shelter, Adaobi couldn't bring herself to leave him to the streets again. "You can stay with me," she offered hesitantly, "just until you figure things out." He was reluctant at first. "I don't want to be a burden." "You won't be," Adaobi insisted. "Besides, I live alone. I could use the company." And so, Mr. Rain moved into Adaobi's modest one-room apartment in the outskirts of Lagos. It was small, with peeling paint on the walls and a curtain instead of a door for the bathroom, but it was warm, and it was home. Adaobi returned to her roadside food stand each morning, selling akara and pap to workers rushing off to their jobs. Mr. Rain, though still lost in a fog of forgotten memories, insisted on helping sweeping the front, assisting with cleanup, even helping carry buckets of water when needed. It wasn't long before the people in the neighborhood began to talk. Adaobi found herself a fine man, one of the market women teased. She blushed, denying anything romantic, but deep down, she couldn't ignore the comfort she felt having him around. One evening, after they had eaten boiled yam and palm oil, Mr. Rain sat quietly on the floor mat. He had been restless all day, pacing and distracted. "I saw something today," he said suddenly. Adaobi looked up from where she was washing dishes. "What do you mean? In a dream, or maybe a memory?" "A tall glass building. Very modern. I was standing at the top floor, wearing a suit. People were calling me sir." Adaobi's hands stilled. "I think I was rich," he said, puzzled. "Or important." She sat beside him slowly. "Maybe your memory is coming back." "I'm not sure I want it to," he admitted. "I feel peaceful here. With you." Their eyes met. Something silent and unspoken passed between them. But Adaobi pulled away, hiding the storm of emotions rising within her. Because if his memories returned, would he still stay? And if he truly was a powerful man, what place did a poor food seller like her have in his life? As the night deepened, so did the questions. But fate had already begun turning its wheels, leading them to a revelation that would shake everything they thought they knew. One sunny afternoon, Adaobi and Mr. Rain were walking back from the market, laughing over a ridiculous haggling moment with a pepper seller, when it happened. A black SUV rolled to a slow stop beside them. The window slid down, revealing a man in a sharp blue suit. His eyes locked on Mr. Rain. He looked stunned. "Sir," the man gasped. "Sir Toby." Mr. Rain froze. Adaobi turned to him, confused. "Toby." But Mr. Rain wasn't responding. He stared at the man, something flickering in his eyes. Recognition, confusion, pain. "Sir, it's me, David, your driver. We've been looking for you for weeks. The board, your mother, everyone's worried sick." Mr. Rain, Toby, held his head, groaning. The pressure in his temples was unbearable. Suddenly, everything began to return. The rainstorm, the phone call from the board, the argument at the office, the car crash, his mother's angry voice warning him about betrayal. And then, darkness. He looked at Adaobi, heartbreak on his face. "I remember. My name is Toby Akanji. I'm the CEO of Akanji Holdings." Adaobi stepped back, the world spinning. "Toby, the same Toby whose billboards covered the Lagos skyline? You? You're that Toby." The driver stepped out. "Yes, Ma. Oga Toby's been missing since the night of the crash. We thought she found me." Toby interrupted, pointing at Adaobi. "She saved me, took me in, took care of me. I owe her everything." David stared at Adaobi with new eyes, no longer as a stranger, but as someone important. But Adaobi felt a wall rise between them, a barrier made of wealth, class, and reality. Toby saw it in her eyes. "I'm still me, Adaobi," he said softly. "Please don't pull away." But Adaobi could already feel her heart building walls, protecting itself. He was a billionaire. She was a roadside acra seller. How could this ever work? And yet, deep inside her, something whispered it already had. In the days that followed Toby's return to his world, Adaobi's small home felt emptier than ever. The man she once knew as Mr. Rain was now back in glossy suits, chauffeured cars, and high-rises. He had left her his number and his promise. "I'll come back for you." But Adaobi had heard such words before. Life had taught her not to hold on to promises made by the rich to the poor. Meanwhile, in the city, Toby was struggling. Board meetings felt longer. His mother was furious when she discovered where he had been. "You're telling me you lived in a shack with a roadside girl for weeks?" she screamed. "This is why I said you needed to marry someone in your class." But Toby had changed. That girl, that life, they had opened his eyes. "She's not just a roadside girl," he said calmly. "She's the reason I'm alive." Determined, he drove himself to Adaobi's neighborhood one evening. Rain was falling, just like the first day they met. He found her outside, covering her accurate tray from the downpour. Their eyes met. Toby stepped out without an umbrella, walked into the rain, and dropped to his knees before her. "I remember everything. I remember how you saw me when I was invisible, how you treated me with dignity when I had nothing. I don't care about titles or what anyone thinks. I love you, Adaobi." People gathered, shocked. Phones came out, but neither of them noticed. "I didn't think I could love someone like you," she whispered. "But I do. I really do." He smiled through the rain. "Then marry me. Let's build a life, not with class or wealth, but with kindness and truth." Tears mingled with the raindrops on her face. "Yes," she said, pulling him into an embrace. 1,000 times yes. The crowd clapped. The rain kept falling, but inside their hearts, the sun had come out.